welcome to the Python class again. Let's continue from where we left off. Previously, we looked at the if statement. Today, we'll look at the for statement. I'm going to create a file for that. I will call this for class. I know you might be wondering, why are we doing all of these things, right? I mean, why not just start building something? The truth is that no matter what you want to build, it's founded upon these simple constructs. If you show me a large application, I will show you all these things that we're doing in them, right? Because these are things you would need. And so don't be discouraged if you feel like, oh, I'm not really building something. Learn these things. I would say that you should try to understand how it works. Give yourself some challenges and, just try to solve them. It helps a lot. It helps a lot to understand the foundations, and then you go ahead to start building applications than the other way around. So keep learning, and let's keep learning together. So let's look at for statement. Now the for statement in Python, it differs a bit from what you may be used to in a programming language like, say, C or Pascal. So rather than always iterating over an arithmetic progression of numbers like in Pascal, or giving the user the ability to define both the iteration step and halting condition. Maybe you've seen that in C, and again, this is not Python. This is C. So you can have something like in x equal to 0, and then you say x is less than 10, and then you say x plus plus. In C, this is possible. You don't see it this way in Python, and that way Python differs a little bit. Now, one good thing about Python's for statement is that you can iterate over the items of any sequence. So be it a list, be it a string, you can iterate over the items of any sequence in the order that they appear in the sequence. And so let's look at this example. Say you have some words that you have, maybe it's more like a dictionary or anything like that, maybe your own dictionary. But in your dictionary, you have cat, you have window, and then you have this word defenestrate. Now let's say you want to iterate over this list. Of course, we've looked at list, and I hope you know that this is a list, right? It's a list of words. And let's say we now want to iterate over this list. And while iterating, we want to print out the length of each item in that list. The way we would do that, one way to do that, would be to use the for statement. And here we say for W in words, again, that colon, you see it there again. And we can just say print W and the length of W. Now, I believe so much that we've done this, we've done len. And if you recall, we said that that's used for returning the length of characters there is in whatever you're trying to get, that string. So let's run this and let's see what we get from here. As you can see, we have cat 3, window 6, defenestrate 12. And that's because if you look at this, we are doing a couple of things. One, we assigned this list to this variable called words. Now we are iterating over these words, and we're using this W in words. And then we're saying print W, which is that word, and then print the length of that word there. So the first W here that you see is going to be cat, and it's going to print out the length of cat together alongside with it. It iterates because we still have words available. We still have something left here. which is window, until you get here, and then there's nothing more to it, and it exits out of that loop. Now, I want to talk a little bit about codes that modify a collection while you're iterating over that same collection. And this can be tricky to get right. It's usually more straightforward to loop over a copy of the collection or to create a new collection entirely. So let's say you have this collection. Let me comment this out. So let's say we have this, I'm going to create a sample collection here. Let's say we have users, and I know we haven't talked about this, but we'll get to it. This is a dictionary. Eleanor, let's say this person is inactive, and let's say we have another person, Barnes. Let's say Barnes is active. Now we have all these users. Now the first strategy I talked about, you remember I talked about two different strategies. If you want to iterate over this collection and you want to modify this collection, so you think of it like this: you want to modify something here while iterating over this same collection. The first strategy is to iterate over a copy. And when you do that, the way to do that would be to say for user, status in users.copy.items. I know we haven't dealt with some of these things. We'll definitely get there. Just take note that what I want to show you is that when you are modifying a collection while you're iterating on over that same collection, it can be very tricky to get right. And I just want to show you two ways that you can avoid stories that touch, If status is equal to inactive, and what do we want to do? We want to delete users. We want to delete that particular user. And so let me just quickly tell you let me quickly explain what this is doing before I show you the second strategy. Now, this user here, it relates to each user you have here. This is a key, and again, I said we'll talk about this, but this is a key value pair kind of collection where you have a key and you have a value. You have a key, you have a value. And so here you can think of this user as the key and the status being the value. And so in this case, for the first iteration, it's going to be Hans for the user and then the status for active. Now in these users, I believe you know where this users is coming from, which is this one. What we are now saying is that instead of modifying this in place, or instead of modifying this directly, we want to create a copy of this collection. And then we want to iterate over the items. This is how to iterate over dictionaries, and we'll look more into that later on. So we're now saying that if the status, which is this, if the status is inactive, as you can see here, Eleanor is inactive. We're now saying that delete that user. So the way to delete that user is by saying that we want to delete from this user's collection, but we want to delete this particular user. So let's run this and we'll see what happens. Of course, we won't see anything. So let me print the users. I'm going to say print users before modification. Let me call this users before modification. And then I'm just going to print out users. And here I'm going to say print users after modification. And I'm going to print out. Now I want to show you something here. Let's do this. Let's run this. As you can see, we have Hans active, Elena active. That's before modification. Let me include some spaces in there so that we can see them much differently. All right. So before modification, and perhaps that's too much. Okay. So before modification, you can see we have a Leonor here, right? But after modification, it's not there, right? And that's because we have done something here. We've deleted that. But you might be wondering, what we did was to create a copy, right? Yes, that was what we did. And that's because if we didn't do it this way, it might modify it wrongly. So without much ado, let me show you the second. I'll comment all this out. So if we try to print these now, you'll see that both of them are still the same thing, right? So let's go to the second strategy. The second strategy would be to create a new collection. So if we want to do this, the way we do that is by saying, okay, since what we want is the active users, why not just create another empty dictionary for that? And we know now that from what we saw there, we can say for user, status in users.items. And now if you notice now, we don't have that copy here because again, we are just creating a new collection altogether. So if we now say that if status is equal to active, what do we want to do here? We want to say that active users of user is equal to status. So what is it we're doing here? This, and again, we'll talk about dictionary much later, but for now, I just want to explain what this is doing. With the most important thing is that I'm talking about modifying collections, and while iterating over those collections, you want to modify them. So you can look at, if you look at this, we have user, we have status. I've explained all that, but the only thing that is missing here is that copy, right? That copy isn't here, and that's because we aren't modifying this anymore. What we are doing now is that we've created a new collection, which we're now assigning here to status, if the status is active. So here I'm going to print out the active users. And so when you think of it like this. This is more like the opposite of this. In this case, we're creating active users. In this case, we are deleting inactive users to make all the users active, right? So it depends on the way you think about it. If you think about it in the context of we want active users, then this would be the appropriate code. If you're thinking of it in the sense of, okay, we want to remove inactive users, then this would probably be the better option for you to go. But whichever one, both work just fine. If we run that, you can see users before modification, Hans, and all that. And then we have users after modification. We have this. All right, so that's it for the for statement. We'll go ahead to look at the range function. We'll see that in the next video. Have a great day. Thank you.